Yeah.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Robert Visitainer. I work for the UK Men's Shed Association. I'm actually based in Wales, so part of Men's Sheds Cymru, which is now a project within UK MSA. Tim Tim is a shed member himself. Tim, which shed are you at?
I run Sherwood Men's Shed in Tunbridge Wells in Kent.
Cool, cool. So Tim is going to sort of lead on talking shed today, and I'll be here because I know what's going on in Wales as well.
Well,
So over to you, Tim.
well, basically, I don't know how many have heard of men's sheds, but a men's shed is basically an outfit that involves making and doing. They're standalone, but provide a safe environment for older men, although it's not exclusively older men and not exclusively women, to come together in a safe environment to talk. One of the biggest problems we've got amongst older men is loneliness and social isolation. And sheds can be a number of things, and they're innovative, and they foster friendships and basically an inclusive organisation. They first started in the UK in 2013 when a guy called Mike Jen brought over a model from Australia where they originally, and he started his own shed in Camden Town. Men's Sheds as an organisation became registered as a charity in 2015. And at the moment, we've got 850 men's sheds open in the UK and about 150 in development at any given time.
There's about 75 in Wales, just for the
Right.
Welsh audience.
And as a result, we've got about 13,000 shedders benefiting from social interaction and skill sharing and participating sheds who very much interact within their local communities. Every shed is different. Basingstoke Shed, for example, is a mobile shed and a bus, and they are able to take the shed to different communities in that particular area. Porring London District Shed is inside a former blacksmith's forge, and Crewe Kernan District Shed in Somerset are based in an old retail shop, and it does a lot of fix-it activity for people. It's a bit like a repair cafe. I don't know if you've heard of Repair Cafe. As to whether sheds are just for men, well, the answer is quite definitely no. Men's sheds accept women, but this will depend on the individual shed. There's no prescriptive way a shed is run. There are a few all-women sheds. There's in Medway in Kent, not very far from where I live. They've just been given a grant by the county council to open a women's shed, and that's already fully subscribed.
Colwyn Bay have they call it a she shed. So they have men only days and they have women only days, and that's the she shed.
Yeah, and in actual fact, we've had women come to our shed. In fact, they've had a project. I mean, one lady, she took on an allotment, and she wanted a potting table, but she wanted a potting table that she could put away in the winter. So from pallet wood, we were able to make up a potting table that was collapsible, and she could put it away in the winter. And she got involved with that. Another lady wanted to make some planters to grow salad stuff on her windowsills. And she said, I want to do it, but I want, your help and expertise, which was great. So that's what we did.
That's good. Tim, Sarah's got the slides ready. We had an issue with the slides.
Okay.
For everyone to know, but would you like Sarah to put the slides up now for everyone?
Yeah, by all means, do. As to whether sheds are for older people, again, when we first started, we had a 16-year-old who was in a bit of bother and had to be with a responsible adult. But he came along, and funnily enough, one of our members saw him the other day, and he went on from us to get a job as a gardener. And I have to say, he's on the straight and narrow now. So and he's now about 21. So hopefully we were able to contribute something towards putting him back on the rails.
What do you think the average age of your shedders are, Tim?
It's I would say the average age is 60 plus.
Yeah.
We're all of an age, which is quite good. And again, we do a lot of woodwork, and we make planters for the local authority. We make memorial benches, but also we make things like bird boxes, and anything, notice boards, you name it. A lot of the stuff that we make is for sale at craft fairs and things like that, really to keep us sustainable. We don't get any grants or any subsidies other than those that we apply for specific pieces of equipment, but otherwise we're completely self-funding. But as I say, we get involved with woodwork, but other sheds get involved with gardening, metalwork. Some of them even do cooking. I mean, we actually had a session where we had a chef came along for a period of 6 weeks, and we all went there to learn how to cook. Because again, you know, older men on their own, who for whatever the circumstances are, if they can't cook, they don't eat properly, so then they get ill, and with all the usual consequences.
I know a few creative writing sheds as well. A lot of sheds do, particularly in Wales. I don't know whether it is particular to Wales, but they write poetry and plays, and
yeah,
that's when that I've come across. Allotments are popular as well.
Yeah.
And socializing. There's a lot of groups that actually go out and visit local, you know, landmarks, castles in Wales.
Yeah.
But they go out as a group.
We can go on to the next couple of slides, please, Sarah.
There's a difference between older men and older women, doesn't it? At the end of the day, you know, older women will go to a coffee morning and they'll sit down opposite another, you know, old duck, and they'll talk about how bad things are and what an horrible time they're having with it and what the health problems are and how the families let them down, and they'll do all that, you know, and they don't mind going there. I'm going there because I'm lonely, whatever. But if you speak to an old bloke, you go, nothing wrong with me, I'm all right, you know, and there's no way he's going to go to anything like that. It's just not going to go. But, you know, you might get into a men's shed, and once he's there, you'll probably go back again and again.
Again, here's a guy painting as an artist. We've actually got an artist amongst our group who is very useful, because when we make things that needs a design on it and whatever, we can always turn to him and put his use his skills and expertise. Yeah. Next one, please.
Llangadog men shed, I discovered, playing with the scale electrics. They're repairing and playing with scale electrics.
Right, most important tool in a shed is a kettle. Yeah. When we meet twice a week, and between 1 and 4. And the first thing we do is the kettle goes on, so that we all catch up on what we've been doing over the previous couple of days and so forth, and also have a brief conflab about, you know, who's got to do what in terms of activity, and if we've got a commission to make something, then we have a chat about that and work out the best way of doing it. And sometimes we end up with trying to design a horse and end up with a camel, but you know, that's all part of life's rich tapestry. And then we also towards the end of the session have another cuppa and a biscuit, and that's when we put the world to rights. So and that's usually twice a week that we manage to get things put right. Thank you. And the next one, please. There we are. Many men have eaten in this kitchen and gone to lead normal lives.
Some died, someone's written on that one.
Yeah.
I know a shed that sort of runs, it was running 4 days a week, and, you know, sort of 9 till 3. And every lunchtime, it was 12 o'clock, tools down, everything switched off, and everyone would eat together. And that's when they would put the world to rights, and then back to it at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. Right, next slide, please. Right, here we go. This is the real reason why men's shed are needed. loneliness can actually increase your risk of death by 26%. And 1 in 10 men said they did not admit to feeling lonely. You know, older men, we don't admit to having any faults or frailties or anything like that. And it's estimated about 8 million men in the UK feel lonely at least once a week, with 3 million saying it's a daily occurrence. And that's the Joe Cox Commission on Loneliness that is the source of that information. You can develop coronary heart disease, the risk of a stroke, high blood pressure, and also it can increase the rate of cognitive decline and dementia just by being lonely. And so that's what Men's Sheds are aiming to try and stem the flow of people in this direction. And the number of over 50s experiencing loneliness in the UK is set to reach 2 million by 2025-26. And 500,000 older people go at least 5 or 6 days without seeing or speaking to anyone at all, which I find you know, quite staggering, particularly as I live in a town. But you know, I can understand in rural areas or less populated areas, this could well be the case. And if you think about, you know, whereby, you know, every village had a local shop that used to go and get social interaction, that's not always the case these days. You know, people have to drive, you know, they can drive 20, 30 minutes just to get to, you know, go and do the shopping. You know, you don't get daily mail deliveries now, so you don't, you know, you can't have a chat with the local postman. And also with people working more, and with both partners, and perhaps in a marriage, you know, working, you know, there's no one at home to sort of have a chat over the garden fence all the time. 2/5 of all older people say that television is their main company. And the trouble is, I suppose, that television now is quite sophisticated with so many channels. It's very easy to get hooked in and sucked into just sitting in front of a screen. And the whole reason for starting our shed was to get people from out of their sitting rooms and watching the telly all day, daytime TV, and to get some social interaction.
Yeah, there's quite a few guys I know that shed is highlight of the week. You know, they live alone. They don't, like you say, don't have neighbours, don't go out much. People talk less on the streets. But the men's shed has become their, you know, their reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. And 76% of all suicides are men, which is a very telling statistics. Right, now I'll tell you a bit more about our shed. If we go on to the next slide, please. Oh, here we go, the lawnmower analogy. In Australia, when they started the whole project of men's sheds, they said if you put if you go to the next slide, it'll come up with a script. If you put 12 men in a room and ask them to get to know each other, 6 will leave immediately and the other 6 will try and find a corner to stand in. However, if you come up to the next slide, please. If you put 12 men in a room and ask them to fix a broken lawnmower in a couple of hours, they'll know all about each other, all about their ailments, their skills, their backgrounds, and in some cases, their problems, etc. And next slide, please. They'll have fixed the lawnmower.
Maybe.
Which is great, because it's when we get new people that come to our shed, we work on a buddy system, because sometimes it can be a bit daunting coming to an established group and slotting yourself in, particularly, you know, if you don't necessarily have the greatest of self-confidence and so forth. But at the same time, I can guarantee within a couple of hours they're in there with as part of the group and contributing and learning skills and so forth. But we all surround ourselves around the common, these projects, and the woodworking is the magnet that pulls us all together in terms of either working out how to do it, how to make it, the best way of doing things, and also actually physically doing it. And by doing that, that's when we start talking to each other, which is what it's all about. Next slide, please. We've got another video here. We can play that.
I've had a lot in my life, and you know, the men in sheds help me to talk and express my feelings and to be me. And you know, us men getting together, you know, we can sit, we can have a chat, we can, you know, we can speak to one another and listen, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
So that's quite telling in terms of what you just heard that chap talk about. And in terms of loneliness, 96% of shedders who identified as being lonely when they arrived at the shed feel less lonely having joined it. In terms of mental health, anxiety has been reduced, as well as depression. And those who are identified as being anxious or depressed before joining the shed, you know, anxiety is reduced by 75% and depression by 89%, which are quite staggering figures when you think about it. And in terms of social isolation, 88% feel more connected to the community after joining a shed, with 97% making new friendships. We find that, you know, by doing things in the community, people say, and they say, oh, we're from Sherwood Men's Shed. Oh, you made those planters, didn't you? And also, all of a sudden, any shedder that comes to our shed automatically sort of has an elevated status, because they think, well, hang on a minute, I helped make those things that all the members of the town are seeing and taking part in. So, you know, they've all automatically, as a consequence of coming to the shed, been elevated as it got greater sort of standing in the community because they've contributed to the community.
And I think there's a feeling of proudness in themselves as well, proud that they've achieved something, and they feel worthy again.
Absolutely, because you know they can be out with a family or friends or anybody and say I helped make that, which is you know, gives people a great it improves their self-esteem no end.
Hello, my name's Alan. I've been coming to the shed about 3 years now. I came here following a bad bout with depression. Met these lads. I couldn't at the time. I was just learning some guitar chords. They've spent a lot of time teaching me some more guitar chords. I'm still nowhere near as good as them, but I enjoy trying. And this is a weekly event that we really enjoy. I really enjoy anyway. If you're thinking about coming to the sheds, just come to a shed. Just give it a try. Just have a brew, have a sit with the lads. Hopefully you'll enjoy the crack and come back again. Yeah. It's a great place to be.
Nice one now.
Yeah, very good.
So this is all again about the consequences and the effects of people coming to the shed. 39% of sheds believe they have at least one member that may have prevented from killing themselves by being part of a shed. Now, I can give you first-hand experience of this because we have a guy that comes to the shed. He's been coming about 4 years now. When he came to us, he's an he was an ex-2 para, came out of the army, was an HGV driver for many years. He tried to commit suicide 4 times. The previous and the last time was about 6 months before he came to the shed, and he was recommended to come to the shed. And as I say, he's been with us for about 4 years now. He's a wizard on the lathe. He has some very strong opinions on life and whatever, but we accept that. But throughout the pandemic, I made sure that we had a weekly Zoom call of all the shedders so that we could keep in touch with each other, so we didn't sort of break the chain, as it were. And this particular guy is a keen motorcyclist, and we have 2 other motorcyclists in the group. And so this is going back to what Rob was saying about making friendships outside the shed. In terms of it's an extension of what the shed starts off. They go motorcycling together quite often, and as a group. So there's that continuity, and we've all got our own. We share our phone numbers, and we've got a WhatsApp group, so that if anybody is in trouble, they can get in touch with us automatically outside of physically being at the shed to give them help. And the real sort of star or the cherry on top of the the cake in terms of this guy's situation is that he's about to do a course on counselling so that he can counsel other people who have got suicidal tendencies. And you think, well, hang on a minute, you know, that's quite a journey to come from where he was to where he's going to be as a result of coming to the shed. There's a couple of other quotes there in terms of, you know, if only we'd known about men's sheds, my husband would still be with us. Quite often we get, when we have shows and exhibitions, we get wives come along and said, you know, my husband has recently retired and, you know, I'm sure it'd be great for him to come to the shed. And they can be the driving force in terms of recommendations and introductions to the shed. And we're grateful to have them.
No, absolutely. I know many, you know, many a man has ended up in the shed courtesy of wife, daughter, cousin, son. Someone else sends them to the shed.
Yeah. And you know, there's a couple of other quotes there. Men's shed can give me friendship and camaraderie. It's a great place to be. You can make new friends, plus a great place for making wooden toys, bird boxes, etc. Life is well worth living. Thank you. From a regular shedder. And the way we approach matters is that we always have joint projects to facilitate the interaction, the social interaction. But people can come along and do their own do their own things, or you know, and if there isn't an awful lot of activity available in terms of a joint project, well, I mean, you know, one of our guys came along. He said, "Oh, I think I'm going to make a couple of boot jacks." So he went off on his own and made them, but and he's going to give them to his family and so forth. But it's very much a case of just being there, as it were. I'll do another one. I've been picking and I've been strumming, just waiting on the song. I've been bitching, I've been thumping, crap you up, sorry. Well, that could show you just how people could get carried away, enjoy the shed. Next slide, please. And this is a bootle tool shed. It's in a shopping centre in the middle of Liverpool, and they get involved with a lot of community projects into refurbishing bikes, upcycling furniture for people in need, collecting and cleaning football boots for children and more. And they started off targeting members over 50 and now open to anyone over the age of 18, which shows that, you know, there are no age restrictions. And sometimes, you know, the interaction between the younger members of of a shed with the older members of a shed is a good thing, because people who have retired that have got skills get a great deal of satisfaction from passing those skills on to younger members of the shed. I mean, I know that we're talking more and more these days about apprenticeships, but they're nowhere near the level that some of our older members were involved in when they were younger. And that's why sheds are very, you know, a good place to pass on these skills to people who don't necessarily have them. You know, we get people who come to our shed who are enthusiastic DIYers, but, you know, can soon learn how to do a proper mitre joint and whatever, some pretty skilled carpentry stuff.
Yeah, Bootle Tool Shed, a real community shed, and they won Shed of the Year 2023, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Workshops like this can tend to be a safe haven for people. We've had some members who have said they honestly wouldn't be alive without the support the men's shed's given them. Bootle Tool Shed's got a number of men who have expressed how grateful they are for what we do.
So here we are. What do we do next? Have your first conversation about starting a shed. Others that are interested. We've got a guide on our website about how to start a shed. And for most regions of the country, there are people like Rob and myself who are ambassadors for UK Men's Sheds, who can have a chat with you, come and see you, see about and walk you through the best way to establish things. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, here in Wales, I am going to guess that much of the audience is from Wales today. You've got myself in South Wales, and my colleague is Simon Poole. He's up in North Wales, so you can reach us through the UK Men's website that's up on the screen now, and we'd be happy to talk shed and hold your hand if you want to start a shed. But if not, I would highly recommend find your local shed. Again, on the website, there's a map where you can put in your postcode and it'll bring up, I'm not sure what the distance is, but it'll bring sheds that are near you or the postcode that you put in, and give them a call and go and visit.
Yeah. I mean, because there are key things that you need to have, by opening a shed, automatically there are certain responsibilities that you need to worry about, like the insurance and the health and safety policy and things like that. But we've got guides on the UK Men's Shed website. They will help you through all this regulatory stuff, which is necessary but can be a bit of a pain.
There's a question here from Stephen. Thank you. Is there a brief on what a men's shed focuses on in their local area? Well, I think I can answer that. I think on the directory, if you go to the directory on the website, there's a little brief under the shed which describes the things that they do. But give them a call for me to try and sell it to people that I feel would benefit. Oh, that's Stephen following up with his question. So yeah, if you go on the website, find which shed you're looking for, and there's a brief description of the activities they get up to. But if that is short or you want to, give them a call. I know sheds are more than happy to take calls and answer questions.
It's quite useful also if you're thinking about opening a shed, is just having something simple like trying to convene a meeting and get people to come along, because out of that meeting you may well find that there are some key people who are really keen to be active, and that's quite important in terms of having sort of shed leaders who are going to drive the thing forward. And then the next thing obviously is finding premises, but it's having a sort of a steering group is a very good way to kick things off.
Yeah, we've there's a men's shed. I forgot to mention this. There's a men's shed toolkit as well, and I know it's definitely on the Men's Sheds Cymru website, but you can email us through UK MSA as well, and we can send out copies. I think Pauline, that might be useful for you. Pauline's asked for a copy of the PowerPoint. I'm sure that our host today can send that out. But Pauline, if you go on the Men's Sheds Cymru website and look for the toolkit, you can download that, and that talks a lot about, well, why and how to start a shed. Good. Tim, do you have a board at your shed? Are there some key members of the shed who sort of do the paperwork?
We have I'm a chairman, and then we have a treasurer, a secretary, and we have 2 co-opted members as well.
That's good.
We're fairly informal. Quite honestly, as a group, most decisions are taken collectively. Yeah. We keep having myself and 2 other committee members. We keep control of the finances. But in terms of how we approach things and how we do things and whatever, it's very much it's a collective thing, because nobody is left out. That's the key. One of the key things is that everybody can make a contributions, and we try and encourage a climate that failure is not something that is frowned upon. If you botch up a piece of wood or whatever, well, you botched up a piece of wood. It's no great shakes, but by botching it up, hopefully you've learned how to do it the right way.
Yeah. So there's a question there. Do you know if the shed in Carnarvon is still running? I've heard it's closed. I think it is the shed that has closed, but the group might be trying to resurrect the shed, and they may even be meeting socially whilst they're looking for new premises. But if you want to email us at UKMSA, I'll get a definite answer for you. And I think that was Pauline again. But that does happen, I think. I don't know whether you've come across that as well, Tim. That unfortunately, sometimes a shed has to close or move premises.
Yeah.
But often, often they do survive. They may go online, or they may just meet socially in a local library or cafe until they find new premises. But they usually do survive.
Having established, I think people underestimate how strong the bond is, and that certainly if anything happened to our shed and we had to move or whatever, we'd find a way. Even if we kept it, even if we didn't make anything, we would still meet as a group and carry on.
And that's the testimony.
Until we found premises where we could start doing more woodwork and so forth.
Yeah, that's it. That camaraderie really builds when you join the shed and you keep going to the shed. There's a real sense of ownership, and everyone in the shed sees the good that the shed is doing, especially when new members come along, and they may come along and they're shy and they're quiet, and 3 months later they're part of the shed and they're well embedded.
Absolutely.
Who's Tamara or Sarah?
I've got a question from Steve Dallimore. Do people pay a subscription for Visit Weekly, etc.? That varies by shed to shed, really. We don't charge anything. We say to people, if you want to bring a packet of biscuits or a bottle of milk, well, that's fine. I know that some sheds near us, they charge £2 a session. But again, it's down to individual sheds as to how they're funded and how they organise these things. There's no prescriptive right. It's really, I mean, I think we're quite lucky because our premises, we don't have to pay rent and we have very sort of few outgoings. To my mind, if we had to pay a commercial rent, then we'd probably have to pay. But I took the decision when we first started the shed that it should be free to anyone that wanted to come along, and it was up to me to get the grants to make sure that we were sustainable initially, so people didn't have to pay. And having gone from that stage, we were able to carry on. So there is no joining fee, but some people have an annual subscription. As I say, there's no rules or regulations about how you organise it.
Okay. Anyway, well, I'm going to say thank you, Tim. Thank you to our hosts as well, and thank you for everyone that's been watching.